This is indeed an excellent occasion to celebrate, and that's the reason why we wanted to make it happen sooner, Srinivas Garu, because the world at large, and especially post-pandemic, all of us need more and more infusion of positive news and good news. So Daifuku coming to Telangana and setting up a brand new factory with 450 crores of investment, providing employment to 800 people, 800 plus people, was indeed something that we wanted to celebrate. So my compliments to you, the entire team of Daifuku, on choosing. You made the right choice, I can tell you. You've chosen Telangana and Hyderabad, you've made the right choice. But just a couple of things. The Srinivas Garu seems to be a huge champion of the manufacturing piece, manufacturing ecosystem. I think there's plenty of industrialists in the audience who also are champions of manufacturing ecosystem. Before I came here, I had a meeting with the new US Consul General who's come to Hyderabad, Jennifer Larson.
మీ పిల్లలకి డబ్బు విలువను తెలియజేయకపోతే డబ్బు విషయాన్ని పక్కన పెట్టండి. తేడా వస్తే మిమ్మల్ని అమ్మేస్తారు, జాగ్రత్త. ఇప్పుడే ఫ్రీడమ్ యాప్ను డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకుని పిల్లలకి డబ్బు పాఠాలను తెలియచేయండి.
So she asked me a very interesting question. She said, what do you think about manufacturing? What do you think about services? What do you think about the primary sector? As an industries minister, you need to obviously give me your perspective, your state's perspective, and how do you see this landscape changing over the next few years, next few decades? So one of the things I told her, whoever I meet, wherever I meet, whichever industrialist, whichever potential investor that I meet, they have a renewed enthusiasm towards setting up a manufacturing base in India. Especially post the pandemic, post-COVID, where the world has realized that there is too much dependence on China for everything, for bulk drugs, for medical supplies, for everything literally. And when the supply chain was disrupted, I think every single industrialist, be it small, micro, medium or large, was affected in one way or another. So the world has started really thinking about this excessive reliance and excessive dependence on China. You talk to the biggest players, the Fortune 500 companies or even the smallest of players, they all tell me the same thing. They all tell you that there has to be a China plus one strategy. You can manufacture in China for China, but for the rest of the world needs, we need to start looking at other bases. Now, because we are similar in terms of our sizes, China and India, 1.4 billion people, 1.4 billion people. So in terms of the workforce, in terms of think force, people will draw that oversimplified comparison and say, if we are moving away from China, a logical thing logical place to go to would be India. But when a lot of overseas investors, be it Japanese or Americans or Europeans, they ask me, if China is able to do a few things in a certain way, why can't India do it? I only tell them one thing. China is a country which is very homogeneous, which is very unique in terms of how it is structured, in terms of how it is controlled, in terms of how it is administered. But India is very different. India is a democracy to begin with. India is not one, but there are 28 different Indias, if you ask me, because of the federal structure we have. Each state is so uniquely empowered. The makers of our constitution had envisioned India as a union of states. So therefore, each state, and especially the gateway that you choose to enter India through, will determine your impression of India, will determine how easy you find doing business in India. That's the general thought I leave with any of my potential investor. Having said that, when I travel and when I visit, countries like the US, Japan, and other large economies, I was never more impressed than I was with in Japan. When I was in Japan, and going back to what Srinivas Garu was saying, one of the things that struck me, besides everything that is nice about Japan, the clean streets, the beautiful landscape, etc., etc., the one thing that stood out in my memory, we had a meeting scheduled with the chairman of Suzuki, Osamu Suzuki-san. So we traveled all the way to Hamamatsu from Tokyo. We took a nice bullet train. We were there in 1.5 hours. And we were ahead of time because I know the Japanese are sticklers for time. They're very punctual, right? So I said, I don't want to take chances. I'm meeting a big man, trying to bring him to India, to my state rather. So I was there ahead of time. I was there almost 1 hour ahead of time. Me, Jayesh, my entire team was there. So what we were told was, because we reached ahead of time, they said, he's in a board meeting. why don't you actually go visit the Suzuki Museum? I'm actually not a big fan of museums. I said, okay, whatever. I mean, to kill time, I'll go there, spend some time and come back. So we went into the Suzuki Museum. We were going around. Actually, when I ended up there, it was fascinating. When was the first Suzuki automobile made? When did this happen? When did that happen? It was very, very unique, very, very uniquely sort of positioned, that museum. And I even found one of Chiranjeevi Garu's pictures there. That's a different story. I'll save it for another day. But we were going through the museum. What I found, to my amusement, and to which I thought was very intriguing.
మీ పిల్లలకి డబ్బు విలువను తెలియజేయకపోతే డబ్బు విషయాన్ని పక్కన పెట్టండి, తేడా వస్తే మిమ్మల్ని అమ్మేస్తారు, జాగ్రత్త. ఇప్పుడే ఫ్రీడమ్ యాప్ను డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకుని పిల్లలకి డబ్బు పాఠాలను తెలియచేయండి.